Welcome back to the Future of Figure Skating. My name's Anna Keller, and today I have a conversation recorded over the summer of 2024 with Khoudia Touré. Khoudia is a street dancer, a choreographer, and a performer from Senegal. In 2018, Khoudia was selected for the Rolex Mentor and Protégé Arts Initiative and worked with the renowned Canadian choreographer Crystal Pité. Since 2020, she's been a frequent collaborator with Stéphane Lambiel's skating school in Champery, Switzerland. She teaches hip-hop and improvisation techniques to students during the summer camp, and she's collaborated with artists such as Guillaume Cizeron, Satoko Miyahara, and Stéphane to choreograph some very innovative pieces using improvisation. I was lucky enough to get to speak with Khoudia during the summer camp in Champery, and I hope that you enjoyed this conversation and some clips of her work with her students. I've been so impressed with the impact that you had on the team, and so I would love to know, how did you get connected to the world of skating and to Switzerland and all of this?
So I have to tell a big thank to Stéphane Lambiel. He's been a door for me to enter the skating world, and he invited me to the school to teach for a summer camp. And I feel like the connection that there was between dance and skating was so interesting that we all wanted to dive more into it and to explore this universe. So it's been a few years now that I'm teaching at the skating school through the summer camp, but also working with some of the skaters into their creation process. And I never skated before. I come from a very different background. I live in Senegal in West Africa. And yes, I feel like this encounter of our worlds has been a wonderful adventure so far. So yes, basically Stéphane has been this entry for me.
And how did you meet Stéphane?
So we have been in touch by a very good friend of mine, dancer, who has come also to the skating school, and it's been through the network of dance. Stéphane loves dancing. I think he has a very pure and genuine love for dance. So he was really open to try what I would have to offer. And our first discussions turned around how could I provide to the skater an entry to working on the floor, working on the groove, working on gravity, on contact, connection. And you see those words are very, very similar to both of our universe. And so we connected through that.
We think about skating as these long extensions and this connection to the classical ballet world, but more and more people are experimenting with bringing other kinds of movement onto the ice. Do you see there being a difficulty in taking the sort of the movements from hip hop to putting onto the ice, or does it be an opportunity for creativity, that it's maybe less connected to what people learn as the basics?
It's definitely an opportunity, I feel, because it's that different. I feel there is room to actually create even more. It's true that the vocabulary and the language that I found in the skaters was definitely more coming from ballet. And it's been a bit of deconstruction work to do that with them. But they've been really open to also enter that door. And for me, as soon as we talk about some universal language, if we talk about explosiveness, rhythm, floor, space, this is really like general values that go beyond every dance style. So we try to have a common vocabulary when we speak to each other based on that. I feel like working with the floor was really interesting to do with the skaters, and also super interesting to work with speed and stops. So those ideas were very particular to the work we had to do. And I think overall, it's been also a lot about using hip-hop as a way for them to enter their body and be conscious about infinite possibilities that they have in their body. So it's not necessarily to transform them into hip-hop dancers. So just hip-hop has this quality that, of being universal and to really engage the body in. So it's been a long research, and now I feel like we're grooving more, we are connecting with music a lot, we are experimenting new things on the floor on different levels, and also in terms of choreography, it's very interesting. I'm learning a lot as much as they learning from me. So it's been a wonderful exchange. Yes, nothing was set in stone before. It's been discovery along the path all the time. Yes.
Yeah, I was really interested watching you working with the skaters in the group earlier today and seeing their the way you were trying to get them to bring an energy to their movements. And I was really noticing that Koshiro Shimada, who has probably worked with you the most of anyone in that
Yes.
group, was really 100% doing everything full attention, and that you could see not everyone had that energy continually, but I thought that was so interesting because skaters are so often focused on doing the right movement at the right time, and it's that kind of that bigger picture of the energy you bring sometimes gets lost with that.
No, it's wonderful what you mentioned, because I think the word energy is very important. Through the class, we went into hip-hop first, but into some sessions, I also invited a friend of mine who's teaching crump. It was very interesting to see how we try to do a pathway of going towards the release, full body engagements, high levels of energies, or contrast of energies, contrast of movement qualities. So I think, you can definitely see in Koshiro that he's been taking a lot of those classes. So now when it's time to let go, he knows how to activate that thing. Yes. And let go and release like that.
Yes. Well, that gives a great model to the others who maybe are a little more hesitant as they're starting, for sure.
But that's a good question. Really good. I mean, that's a good point about this letting out and forgetting to be pretty and allowing ourselves to.
I was also very interested in, you said the word gravity, and I remember Stéphane saying at one point that he was really trying to understand more about letting gravity happen, because as skaters you try to avoid falling, so you're constantly trying to avoid gravity, but what does it look like to actually use it and embrace it? And I think that idea of trying to allow falling, allow more depth, different levels on the ice as well is very interesting.
I feel like it's something that I definitely learned coming at skating school. Back to my practice, one thing that really struck me when I was watching them practicing was to remember for myself that it's okay to fall. And then I apply this even in my own practice, and I think it changed a lot. I'm also super inspired when I come to the school and I see everybody practicing with a sense of working with its fear. It's really, really powerful. And the dedication that I also give to the practice really reminds me the dedication that we have in dance. And going back to gravity, I think it was interesting for me to rethink about that word coming out from the mouth of Stéphane, and to reintegrate that in my practice, and to think, okay, how am I myself using gravity when I approach the floor, when I use different levels, when I use context with someone else, when am I using the weight of that person? So this is for me an example of the constant flow of information that has been going on both sides.
Yes. I also wanted to ask you about improvisation, because that I know is something that you've been trying to help the skaters with embracing.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you teach improvisation and the way you've involved it?
So it's a really good question. I know that improvisation is 200% part of my practice. As hip-hop dancers, we freestyle all the time. So it was interesting to rethink about it because I'm so used to it, but I had to share that to the skaters. And I go through different tools, different set of exercise. I think it's important to share with them a lot of material, exercises, tools in isolation, body control, vocabulary on the floor, vocabulary up for them to be so much into that the improvisation comes naturally. But for me, it's also a state of mind. So it's really how I try to bring the whole room to a state where we know it's a safe space to release and then go within the circle or even for ourselves. So it does take a long time because we talked about deconstruction. So we have to break some things that are very, very, very in. So it's with time and patience and also their openness to go into it with repetition. And also with a lot of discussion about the more psychological aspect behind it. How do we have a fear to not look good in front of the other, to be judged? So it goes through all those ingredients to get there.
Yeah. It's so ingrained in skaters that what you present should be perfect and it should be the same every time. And those are values that are taught. But that's not what the actual reality of the skating. It's never the same every time. And so like embracing that
I think depends on the skater also. Some are really willing to have that window, so they're really happy to jump into that when they can and to release in that sense. For some others it's really more it takes more time to get there, but there is also something with the collective energy. If the whole room is into that, then we create a sphere where,
I wanted to ask you about working with Stéphane on the program This Bitter Earth, which I think is such an amazing program. And every time that he'd perform it, it would change. And that's, an incredible thing to watch. And he also is using shouting in it, which I thought was so interesting. And he said that was your idea. So you talk a little bit about why you wanted him to use his voice in that too.
Excellent question. So I realized myself the power of the voice in one of the work I did in recent years. And it helped me to connect with my voice, to work with my voice, and to realize how much it's connected to breathing, to also put yourself in a state that you are ready to dance with, too. And it came with Stéphane quite naturally. I think Bitter Earth was at the same time an experimentation. It was the first work we did together. So we really came into the work like, okay, it's a space for the unknown. So let's see through the time we have what's going to come out. And it also came out quite naturally. And I feel that also in that piece, we just wanted to be true to the moment, right? To the present moment. So it's also why he's changing many times. I'm asking him to dance with his emotions and to really, to make that moment a bit special for him. So it's not something that he has to execute. It's a gift for him every time. It's so amazing to see him on the ice. So it has to be a pleasure for him and a moment of joy. So it keeps this quite lively. It moves many times because I think it's alive, and we try to dance it with his emotions of the day, his level of exhaustion also. So something else is coming out. So yes, it was that experimentation, I think.
Well, and it produced something that I've talked to a lot of fans who said it was maybe their favorite program that he had ever done. And it each person, though, had their own interpretation of what was going on and what the emotions were. And so it was so interesting seeing that even from the audience that people would kind of connect to different things, maybe seeing different days of the performance, but it really had that, that connection to the audience as well.
It's good for me to hear because I wasn't there when he performed it, so I don't yet had this feedback from the audience itself. It's really interesting for me to hear because these are tools that we use in our ciphers, in our session. It's very underground and raw, and it's so incredible to see that this can travel to that space too, and to see the reception also behind.
And you also worked recently with Stéphane and with Guillaume Cizeron last summer with their program, and that we saw the in progress video, and then we've just been able to see that from the tour that they did, and it's really cool to see that evolution. What was it like working with two skaters, because they're not used to skating together, and how to move and play off of each other?
It started also very simple. We follow the same process as before by really connecting to the music and let the music give us inspiration. And we talked about improvisation before. I think it was a challenge because Guillaume has worked on, I think, sets were very, very tight and precise. And so the playful game on this time was to also see how we would react with this emptiness. With this, on the moment, let it out. I think it's also his personal research right now. So we went with the flow of things for it, and also it was a mix of trying things on the dance floor outside of the ice and see how these things will work on the ice. So it was still a laboratory at the time we made it. We came out with this video just also to have a final form at that time, but they performed recently also in Japan. I think there was a lot of joy for them to cross their different universe and to bring to each other. That's how I felt also from the outside. Guillaume was bringing his thing and Stéphane was bringing his thing. So it was a three people kind of playgrounds. And we all contributed a lot with our different ideas. And it was very communicative work, very participative also work.
See them kind of using the space around each other's bodies in different ways, and understanding that just what the negative space created by someone else's movement is something that we don't get to play with that much. Maybe the ice dancers do when they're choreographing, but they have so many rules to work with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was a lot of freedom around that moment, so we didn't feel any block, don't do this, don't do that. It was also a lot of experimentation with contact, so to be able to pull each other, to grab, to use each other's weight also, and experiment that on the ice with the speed. They had also very powerful moments. It was funny to also go back to the skating vocabulary. I also love that, to the very pure vocabulary of skating and make different combinations. This is something that I do a lot in my practice, especially in house dance. So yes, big laboratory in the making.
I think it's been very inspirational to see what having 2 or 3 great artists can do, just given that freedom to play around together, and to have a stage to do it on is rarer than it should be in the skating world.
True.
I wanted to ask you about maybe something that's become a little bit controversial in skating, but I'm curious about your thought on, which is using things like backflips and cartwheels and these sort of exciting tricks. And clearly in hip hop or in breakdance, there's a lot of that. But that's not all of it, of course. And so I'm just curious how you think about the sort of the balance between the super spectacular technical elements versus an overall performance.
I think for me it's different ingredients, but they're all very important. I love to see in the more acrobatic things the sense of pushing the limits and the sense of also overcoming the pure physical challenge, the fear, the risk that there is. So I love working on that also. But besides that, I think I feel a lot of emotions coming from all the possible body material movement that we have. So I like these things as extra, yes, to when they're needed or when they allow to put us in a physical state when we reached something, so it's very, it's also very dynamic, very exciting, but I love also to go more internal and deep into the possibilities we have in the body, even when sometimes things are not that big, but so internal. That was a challenge on the ice because it's a huge space that we need to feel. The audience is far, we are alone. So it's really, it was a challenge for me to also think about all the small things that we can develop inside and how to amplify them in that space. So that was also a big challenge.
So many different pieces of it.
We need, it's like a bowl, we need a little bit of all these ingredients.
Sure.
Yeah.
My last question for you is about breaking being in the Olympics now. And I'm curious what you think about sort of that another kind of combining dance and competition. And I've been very interested in looking at how it's judged and the idea of sort of directly comparing one person to another and whether that would be a better way of doing judging and skating or some combination of that. And so I don't know, I'm curious what you think about this sort of bringing a dance form fully incorporated into the sports world and where those competition pieces fit in.
So in hip hop we have a lot of competition for sure. We do battles. It's a big part of our culture. And into this sphere, it's true that we develop also a lot of different concepts about judging. There is a lot of different battles today when even the dancers battle the judge, or it's really, really dynamic. But I think it's something that connects us with sport, for sure. What we always try to protect within that culture is that it's just one aspect of the dance, is one part of the dance. It doesn't take over from the joy of dancing in a more social way with parties, a stage, sessions and stuff. So as regard breakdancing, for me there is also an evolution that we cannot really control. I think there will be a lot of work to be done by the judge to also make sure that in their criteria it's not only about the performative side of things, but it's really truly there is a space for the magic of the emotions, of the dance, of the feeling, of the groove, of the relationship to music, to the audience, all these aspects. But I definitely feel that it can be very innovative and provides to the Olympics or the sports world a lot of inspiration in terms of doing competitions in new ways, and vice versa. It can bring that also back to our scene. So I think it's going to be a first step. And then from there, we will see if we have time to debrief after the Olympics. How did it go? Are we happy with that? What direction things are taking? But I think it somehow also helps to bring breakdancers visibility. But to be cautious with, like not to lose the essence. It's just one part of the whole sphere. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'm very excited to watch some and see what
Me
how this
too.
goes.
Yes, it's a premiere. It's let's see.
And I think I saw you have a new project that you were just starting a company or some kind of. Tell me about this new project of
Yes.
yours.
So I just built my dance company. I was working on the new show for the last year, and creating my dance company just came naturally, in a way to also gather in the same space my way of work, the dancers I've been working with. So yes, it's a brand new adventure for me. But what I like in the company is that it will be a space for experimentation also, and to get material from the work I've done in that space too. See how this can inspire my work. So it's named Compagnie Rore, and it will be between Senegal and France, and have artists from both countries together.
Yes. Oh, that's very exciting.
Thank you for mentioning it. Yes.
Well, I really appreciate that in following a little bit of your work just through Instagram, that it has exposed me to lots of other forms of dance and things that are going on in the world that I would not necessarily have encountered otherwise. So it's great to see like all of these different points of intersection.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Khoudia. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Khoudia for sharing her work with us. We've got links to videos of her choreography in the show notes. You can learn more about her work at her website, khoudiacreates.com, and through her Instagram. You can reach me with comments or suggestions for topics and people I should talk to by email at fsfuturepodcast@gmail.com, on Instagram and Twitter at FutureFSPodcast, and at Blue Sky at FutureOfFS. If you appreciate the podcast, you can also support my work with a tip jar at futureofigureskating.pinecast.co. Remember to subscribe to the Future of Figure Skating on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts, and share it with your friends.